Here at UBC, as part of an ambitious project involving instructors, students, staff, and talking squirrels, we are developing videos to help you with your writing skills, because communicating science effectively is an incredibly important part of being a good scientist. Grammar Squirrel and her friends have heard that using the active voice is a good way to get their message across in a succinct, clear manner. But they don't really know what the difference is between the active and the passive voice. After spending some time with her nose in a book, Grammar Squirrel explains with the help of an example. First, she says, it's important to work out what the subject of the sentence is. This is nice and easy. It's just the first meaningful part of the sentence that comes before the verb. Now, in the active voice, the subject actively performs the action which is described by the verb. So, in this example, the instructor is actively choosing the squirrel's partner. In the passive voice, however, the action described by the verb is performed on the subject, rather than by the subject. So, why does this matter? You'll notice that the image arising from these two sentences is the same. But there is a subtle difference, and it lies in how succinct the two versions are. Grammar Squirrel's friends remember that they should always strive to be short and snappy in their writing, and using the active voice will help them achieve this. In the first example, the passive version sounded a little bit clumsy, and it also used more words than the clear, succinct, active voice version. Now, the difference between 7 and 9 words might not seem that bad, but that's because we're just looking at a simple single sentence. Imagine how difficult it could be to read a long report if it was full of long-winded, unclear, passive voice sentences. To see whether her friends have understood, Grammar Squirrel decides to reread the notes from her recent distillation lab. So, here's the first one. Grammar Badger mixed the solutions and observed the color change. Maybe they haven't got it just yet. What about you? Is this sentence written in the active or the passive voice? Remember, start by working out the subject of the sentence. Okay, great. And if the subject is actively performing the action of the verb, which the Grammar Badger is, then this must be written in the active voice. Okay, Grammar Squirrel's second example. By that point, 2 of our test tubes had already been broken. Okay, it seems her friends are still a little bit confused, but what about you? Do you think this is an active or a passive voice sentence? So, remember, begin by finding the subject. Okay, great. And because the action of the verb is passively being performed on it rather than by it, this must of course be a passive voice sentence. Like Grammar Squirrel's friends, you might now be thinking that the passive voice is bad, but she's about to show you why things are not quite that simple. Now, although the active voice is generally preferable, there are some cases when the passive voice isn't just suitable, but it's actually preferred. For example, sometimes we don't want to give away precise details. Sometimes we want to depersonalize a situation on purpose. Maybe we want to take attention away from someone. Maybe we don't know who did something, or perhaps stating the information would simply draw attention away from the real purpose of what we're saying. Remember earlier, when Grammar Badger appeared in Grammar Squirrel's notes? Well, the YouTubers among you might not be surprised to hear that when it comes to chemistry labs, communication, and life in general, Grammar Badger don't care. Grammar Badger don't give a shit. And so, he thought it would be a good idea to choose Grammar Squirrel as his partner, because he knew she'd do more than her fair share of work. When he did lend a paw, things went very badly wrong. But, rather than blaming Grammar Badger, Grammar Squirrel used the passive voice to depersonalize the sentence she delivered to an angry teacher in her earlier example. She could, if she'd been less sweet, have used the active voice and got herself off the hook, like this. Okay, for a final example, let's consider this messy scene. Here, it would probably be preferable to use the passive voice version and say, a mess was left in the lab yesterday, because the mess is really the purpose of the sentence, and therefore it's more important than listing the someone whose identity is unknown. Okay, to recap. Remember that using the active voice is preferred in most situations, and it's often a great way to say things more succinctly. This can be very useful when editing your work, because you'll often find that you write things in the passive voice in early drafts. But on a second, closer inspection, you should be able to make things less wordy and much clearer by using more of the active voice. Finally, you might well still see lots of examples of passive voice in the scientific literature. This is because not so long ago, scientists taught one another that this was the preferred way to write about scientific results. But communication, like science, is always changing, and more scientists are now writing about their work using the active voice.